We'll call the adjourned meeting of the Paramount City Council to order. Can we have roll call council members, please?
Councilmember Guillen.
Here.
Councilmember Lemons.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer.
Here.
Mayor Hansen.
Here. Item 1, we do have a proclamation, one proclamation tonight. If everyone would like to join me down at the podium there.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's still afternoon, not really evening yet, but tonight we do have one public presentation. April 22nd through the 26th is Every Kid Healthy Week. This observance was created to celebrate the great efforts that our schools are making to improve the health and wellness of our students. It also makes note of the strong link between nutrition, physical activity, and learning. In Paramount, our Star After School program is heavy on teaching about good health. It focuses on nutritional lessons and getting plenty of exercise. STAR is another great collaboration between the city and the Paramount Unified School District. The program takes place at district campuses, but is run by city employees, and it's paid for by a state grant. Another celebration of children that takes place here in town is Children's Day, Dia del Niño, that is produced each year by the Paramount to Peak Sister City organization. Children's Day itself was begun in 1954 to honor and promote the welfare of the world's children and to protect, educate, and secure their overall well-being. The event here in Paramount is at Paramount Park, which brings together Paramount Unified School District and the city, and is another great way for our schools to interact with parents and show support for our kids. This Saturday, April 20th, from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. is when this program is going to take place. I'd like to invite any of the Sister City members to please come forward to accept our Every Kid Healthy proclamation. Whatever it is. Hi there. Where's the proclamation? They didn't give it to me. How do you? I'm still looking. Hey, how you doing? I'm still looking for the proclamation.
Now state the question. See what happens when our city clerk is not here to assist me? I have failed to provide a proclamation.
Oh. Oh, no. Well, we'll take a picture anyway.
What's that?
You don't have one?
Apparently I do not have one, but we're very happy to have them here and to recognize their upcoming event.
Yeah, we're really happy to have everyone here.
And yes, sir. We will send it to the mail. Okay. Let's kind of go through and let's take a picture.
Wow. Okay. Sorry about that. Not well.
Atlanta's on vacation.
Normally hold up a proclamation.
Exactly.
Photoshop the proclamation in there.
Oh. Thanks, everybody.
I apologize for that, Mr. Mayor. We'll have one delivered over to Peak by tomorrow.
Oh.
So we'll get them over to one.
Okay. Do we have any city council public comment updates?
No, sir. We do not.
Get
You
used
caught
to
me,
that, right?
ma'am. Yes, sir.
Public comments.
Yes, we do. We have two this evening. First one is from Ms. Andrea Crow, our Paramount librarian, and she'd like to discuss with the council some library programs. Andrea?
Mayor Hansen, council members, and the City of Paramount. Paramount Library will be ending the month of April with 3 fun events. On Wednesday, April 24th at 4 p.m., teens are invited to create abstract art using string, washi tape, and spray ink. On Thursday, April 25th at 4 p.m., MakeMo will be at Paramount Library, inviting children ages 7 to 12 to build a marble run that twists, turns, races, and spins marbles at incredible velocity. And on Saturday, April 27th, we have a special Dia de los Niños event. Children ages 5 to 12 can choose to create a tissue paper flower and decorate a tote bag or paint on canvas. Children will also receive a free book while supplies last. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.
Alrighty, and our next one is from Ms. Diana Dolores from Hunsaker Avenue, and she'd like to discuss traffic issues.
Okay.
Ms. Dolores? Diana? Dolores?
Oh. Well, please come forward to the podium. That's okay.
So yes, I would like to. I live on Hunsaker with the Cross Street Mott's, and I've lived there ever since I was born. So I've noticed a lot of trucks doing what is known as donuts in the street there, and it's very dangerous. About 8 years ago, my mom's truck was hit because of that activity. So I just wanted to let the city council know to see if there's something that could be done. I noticed that in other streets in the city, there's little circles of
The bots.
yeah, those bump stops. And maybe that could be a solution for that cross street or anything else. I just wanted to bring it up.
Okay, thank you, Danny. Did you catch that over there? That's in the area where we were talking about earlier? Okay, that's being looked into already. Thank you. Any further?
That seems to be more of a problem all over the town.
And,
anymore, 'cause
yeah,
every intersection you see, there's people spinning donuts.
Mm-hmm. Any further?
No, sir.
Okay, item number 2, 6-month review of city council permit for live entertainment at Paramount Swap Meet, 7900 All-American Way. Do I have staff report, please?
Yes, sir. The council approved the live entertainment at the swap meet back in 2016. However, the swap meet didn't really start live entertainment until more recently. As required, we're providing you a 6-month review of the law enforcement activity that has occurred over the last 6 months since live entertainment, has taken place. This situation looks pretty positive at the swap meet, and with that, I'll turn it over to our Public Safety Director, Ms. Adriana Lopez, who will handle the item. Adriana?
Thank you, John. Good evening, Mayor, council members. As John mentioned, this is a 6-month review for the live entertainment permit at Paramount Swap Meet. The swap meet is located at 7900 All-America City Way, and it's operated by the Modern Development Company, also known as Paramount Swap Meet, and they are the applicants for the live entertainment permit. The swap meet is licensed by ABC for the Type 40 sales, which allows for the sale of beer with the availability of snacks. Oops, I'm sorry. As John mentioned, the live entertainment permit was approved by the City Council in September of 2016, but the entertainment did not begin until September of 2018. When the application was approved, the City Council directed staff to bring back the applicant in 6 months, so this is the 6-month review. These are the type of format, live entertainment format. As you can see here, we have general musical performers, DJs, folklorico, comedians, and magicians. The live entertainment is good for Saturdays and Sundays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So that in itself is a little bit different than all the other live entertainment applicants. So during the 6 months that we're reviewing, we had 23 calls for service that we received. As you can see here, 9 of them are for vehicle break-ins or thefts. 6 of them were for TCs or traffic collisions. And 3 of them were for noise disturbance, and that's usually amongst the vendors inside the swap meet. And then we also had 3 calls, which basically were for deputies to conduct traffic control during the holiday hours. And then we have 1 call for a medical emergency and 1 call for lost property. So our analysis is that none of the 23 calls were related to the live entertainment permit, and we have not received any law enforcement concerns, or none of them have been reported. And also, we believe that one of the reasons why we don't have any law enforcement concerns is that the swap meet has a very robust security camera system, and they also have professional security guards as part of their security plan. So with that, it's recommended that the City Council receive and file the report with the stipulation that staff conducted a 6-month review. And we also have Darren Kurkowski here if you have any questions.
Any questions, council members?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Martinez, second by Hoffmeyer to approve. We have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lemmons,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Hansen.
Yes. Item number 3, parking permit and administrative costs. Staff report, please.
Yes, sir. At the last meeting, the City Council reviewed the permit parking distribution recommendations that we put forth. At that time, the council requested feedback on costs, specifically how much it costs to review and analyze these new requests, and also if there is a cost to process payments should the council attach a charge to permits. And that was one of the recommendations that we presented to the Public Safety Commission, if you recall, was a $5 charge per permit. Well, the council wanted feedback on the actual costs of that. So as it turns out, the cost of actually processing the payment, if we were to charge something, which includes front counter staff time and finance staff time, is very, very minimal. That is, there's no expensive process that has to be created to start collecting fees for these permits. They're already, it's part of our system, we can do that. On the contrary, however, there's definitely a cost for reviewing and analyzing neighborhoods that are requesting a neighborhood parking permit area. And that's under the new procedures that was approved by the council last month. So these costs will be presented in a minute here. The other item that the council asked us to look into is the phasing in of existing neighborhoods that have residential permit parking. We're still looking into this, and we'll be going back to the Public Safety Commission to review this and then return back to you with a recommendation. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Public Safety Director, Ms. Adriana Lopez, who will handle the item. Adriana?
Thank you, John. Once again, I will be presenting the administrative cost associated with neighborhood permit parking. One second. During the April 2nd meeting, City Council adopted the guidelines to distribute neighborhood permit parking. During that meeting, the City Council directed staff to analyze the administrative costs associated with the neighborhood parking permit request. So that's what I will be going over today. Staff looked at the administrative cost and analyzed and included staff wages, parking permit signs, and stationary supplies, which includes postage. So I'll be going over the numbers, but the figures below outline the cost associated with the neighborhood permit parking request for a neighborhood of 100 households. If you look at the personnel cost, it's slightly over $20,000, and materials is slightly under $1,000. What goes into the personnel costs, as John mentioned, is the actual initial screening, the eligibility process, and then the distribution process, and I'll go over that in a little bit. But if we look at the personnel costs, this takes into account the time that Public Safety Director has to meet with the applicant, as well as our analyst has to create maps, conduct all the addresses, contact information, provide a full packet to the applicant, and then also sit down and look at the next phase, which would be the eligibility phase, which is putting letters together, putting our reports that go to the commission as well as to the council. So that all goes into the administrative cost. So once again, here I broke it down into the three processes, which is the initial screening. And there, like I mentioned before, it's more the management team that's involved. You have the eligibility process, which would include management as well as field staff, code enforcement, as well as community service officers. And then distribution would mostly include our field staff, which is our code enforcement officers, but mostly our community service officers that go out to the community. As you can see in the eligibility process within that, you have 5 phases, and all that requires staff time. So today, what I plan on doing is presenting to you 6 different options of permits. The first option, as you can see here, would be option number 1. If we were to charge nothing, if the council decides to charge nothing for a permit, our administrative cost would be slightly under $21,000, and our revenue would be 0, so we would be in a deficit for the full amount. Option number 2 would be $5, and our revenue there would be $3,000. Now, how did we come up with the $3,000? That was based on 4 permits, permanent permits, and 2 guest permits with the expiration of 2 years. So that's how we broke it down.
Mm-hmm.
So we would still be in a deficit. Option number 3 would be $10 per permit. And here our revenue would be $6,000 and our deficit would be slightly under $15,000. Option number 4 would be $15,000. Our revenue would be $9,000 and our deficit would be slightly under $12,000. So if you look at option number 5, that would be $26.74 per permit, and that was the average cost of the 23 cities that were surveyed. That would put us a little bit closer to breaking even, but not quite. And then option number 6 would be $34.97, which basically would break even for us. And there, that would be, once again, based on the formula that we used of 6 permits and an expiration date of each permit of 2 years. So it is recommended that the City Council provide direction to staff regarding the permit fees for permanent parking and guest parking. I do have to say that if the council decides to charge a fee, I do have to bring this item back via resolution. And I can answer any questions at this time.
Questions?
What cities around us that have these parking permits? Like, say, does Bellflower have it?
Yes, they do. I do
What do they
have
charge?
1 second, let me look at that. So in our survey, the 23 cities that we surveyed here would be, Bellflower's not included because they're actually undergoing their own study. So we included West Hollywood, Staten, Redondo Beach, Linwood, Newport Beach, Whittier, Santa Ana, Carson, Compton, Southgate, Burbank, Norwalk, West Covina, Downey, Orange, Pasadena, Corona, Glendale, Irvine, Santa Ana, Anaheim, Long Beach, and Sacramento.
You go with
Went all over the
Southgate.
place.
Southgate.
Southgate would be, 1 second. Let's see. 1 permit parking, guest parking. They don't have a fee.
How about Downey?
Downey, 1 second, sir. $45.
25?
Yes.
Compton.
Compton, no fee.
Adriana, is it per household or is it going to be per vehicle?
It's, the permits are per permit, and the household, you could go up to 4 permanent and 2 guests. So it would be, the max would be 6 times 5, so $30.
And I know it was discussed last time, but what about a fee per vehicle?
Well,
Because if we're going to do a resolution, maybe we should look at how many vehicles per household, because that's really going to impact the areas where people park. So if
Right.
you have an area that you have somebody with 10 cars, and let's ballpark
Okay.
figure $10 per vehicle, and they have 10 cars,
Mhm.
right? Okay, somebody might say, well, that's a lot of money. But if you can afford 10 cars, you can afford $10 per vehicle.
But the way it is now is that there is a cap. There's a 4 maximum per car. So that's per household. So what that means is that every car that's registered there, you could only get a permit for 4 cars and 2 guest parking. So we don't really anticipate that anybody's going to come in with 10 cars because we're only going to give them a total of 6. And then remember that we are already looking at the eligibility process. So during that process, we're going to identify people that have inoperable vehicles, that are going to have maybe garages that they're not using for parking and storage. So we really anticipate that's going to really address a lot of those issues where people have way too many cars and not enough permits. That's our goal.
Sounds good.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. When I was reviewing the information I know that we kind of talked last meeting, I don't know where everybody was, but about a $5 fee.
Correct.
And so I saw the revenue from that was $3,000. But
Yes.
then in reading the report too, I saw that we're going to renew the parking passes biannually. So it's actually about $1,500 revenue a year.
Correct. Because the $3,000 was for 2 years.
Would be
so-
for 2 years.
Correct.
yeah. So I'm just in the same place that I was, that it's not enough revenue to bother to burden the system with. It's either go, high enough to cover some of the costs, or why add the burden, administratively, or even to the residents. I don't look at parking as something bonus you get to do. It's a necessity. Everybody has to park. And because it doesn't offset our costs enough to make a difference, I'm still in the same place then. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions? I just have one comment possibly, and I think I'm pretty much in favor of a no fee to begin with. But if they lose them, then I might be in favor of some sort of a fee for a lost one.
Yes, we do have a
Wasn't that in
$10
there?
replacement fee.
So that was in there.
Yes.
Okay. So where are we at?
I'm in favor of no fee,
You what?
no fee, not charging our residents.
So with that, I'll make a motion that we do not charge a fee, parking permit fee, but as already in the code, so do I need to add it to my motion? You're already going to charge for replacement anyway. Is that part of what's written
Yes,
in
we
the
didn't
policy?
bring, yes, that we never really touched that replacement fee. It would stay at $10.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That $10 was really not something that we brought back for discussion in terms, that was just going to be staying in motion or in place, the $10.
Right, so it's already in place in the policy?
Correct.
Okay, so the motion is to not charge any parking fee, whatever. That's my motion.
Second,
Motion by Lemon, second by Martinez. Have roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez,
yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Hansen.
Yes. Item number 4, resolution number 19.011, amending the authorized position listing for full and part-time city employees and salary table for full-time city employees. Have staff report, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you, and the rest of the council. You may recall at the last council meeting, the City Council approved the classification and compensation study. The study included recommendations that would make our workforce more competitive in the labor market, and this would obviously help us to attract and retain a talented and productive workforce. We are proceeding with the initial recommendations that you saw that were in the report, and we are seeking your approval for this. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, Kevin Chun, who will handle the item. Kevin?
Yes, thanks, John. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. As John mentioned, this is a follow-up to the classification and compensation study presentation from your last meeting. With your approval of the resolution in your staff report, staff intends to move forward with the first phase of our implementation plan. And just as a refresher, you approved the classification and compensation study earlier this month on April 2nd. The study recommends title changes, position reclassifications, and salary adjustments. All of the recommendations are to help bring the city's classification and compensation structure more in line with our labor market and to help the city remain competitive in attracting and retaining quality employees. Based on these recommendations, staff proposes to implement the study as follows. First, with title changes, staff proposes to make title changes for several of our positions as shown here. These changes were recommended as many of our titles had become outdated or inconsistent with titles of similar positions in our labor market. Oh, sorry, there we go. Most of these changes are minor in nature, but will be helpful to us when comparing positions in the future. A couple notable changes would be to our clerical positions. Our current executive secretary and secretary 3 positions would be changed to executive assistant and administrative assistant, respectively. Regarding salary adjustments, the study recommended that employees whose compensation is currently below the labor market be addressed in priority order 1 through 4, as shown here. Of course, there are many considerations for implementing this recommendation, most importantly, financial constraints based on our budgetary situation. After a lot of thought and analysis, the most financially responsible course of action would be to only address our priority 1 employees. Those are the ones that are most severely below the labor market. Staff recommends a salary adjustment for priority 1 employees that will bring them from 20% or more below the labor market to approximately the middle of the priority 2 level, or at about 16 to 17% below the labor market. While this measure doesn't fully address the situation for our employees, it's a positive first step that we hope we'll be able to follow with further steps in the future, and again, based on our financial ability. And with this graph, it shows where all of our city positions stand within the labor market in terms of total compensation. As you can see, 37 are below the labor market and 54 are above the labor market. And from left to right, you can see our priority 1, 2, 3, and 4 positions. 3 positions are within priority 1, 1 in priority 2, 7 in priority 3, and 26 in priority 4. These are the priority 1 positions that are 20% or more below the labor market. It's our information technology supervisor, our public works information officer, and public works superintendent. As you can see with each position, we're proposing a 4 to 10% salary increase for these positions to bring them within the priority 2 category level. The cost for this increase for these 3 positions for the last quarter of the current fiscal year will be $8,300. While the City Council approved a placeholder amount of $25,000 during the mid-year budget process, that was intended for a half-year or a 6-month period. The proposed increases for these priority 1 employees over 6 months would be $16,600 and $33,200 for a full fiscal year. In the end, the proposed salary increase could have been more or it could have been less, but we believe that $8,300 is the appropriate amount at this time. So again, staff believes that this is the most prudent and financially responsible first step approach for implementing the classification and compensation study, and we respectfully ask for your approval, and I'm glad to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Questions?
I have a comment. I'd just like to say that when I initially requested this comp study, because there hadn't been one done ever in the history of Paramount, I think that it met with a little resistance in the beginning. But I'm glad to see that this comp study finally has come to fruition, that the employees who deserve a raise are going to get a raise, because that was my whole intent. And hopefully when we have our next COLA raises, we look at the people who are overpaid and then the ones who are underpaid, and we set those COLA raises separately. So I just like to commend the staff for finally getting this done. I appreciate it, and I'm sure our employees appreciate it. So thank you.
Further questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Martinez, second by Hoffmeyer to read by title only and adopt resolution number 19.011. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gian,
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Hansen.
Yes. New business, item number 5. We have a West Nile virus and invasive Aedes mosquitoes update. We have staff report. Oh, there's Kelly.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, we've all heard about how each year the mosquito situation is getting worse and worse, and as Mayor Hansen has kept us informed about this on a frequent basis. So I felt it necessary to go right to the source, and so you can hear firsthand and ask questions about it. So with us tonight is Ms. Kelly Middleton with the Greater Los Angeles Vector Control, who will handle this item. And she's looking for a remote. Got it?
Yep, thanks.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and
Hi
Trustee.
there again.
Tom Hansen. Great to see you in your other chair. We appreciate having him on our Board of Trustees. I want to provide you with a little bit of an update on the issues that we're dealing with regards to mosquitoes throughout our service area and specifically here in Paramount. And I want to thank you for a few minutes of your time this evening. So just a bit about our agency for those that may not be aware. We are an independent special district, a public health agency, and our job is to protect residents from mosquitoes and the diseases they transmit. And we do this really kind of by three-pronged approach. One is monitoring the diseases that are in the environment that mosquitoes can transmit by trapping them and testing them. Also suppressing the population, and there's a whole series of teams dedicated to just doing that, working with residents, going out into the community, checking sources in public areas and private areas, removing the water if we can, or treating it if we cannot. And then outreach and education is really critical, and I appreciate the city's efforts in assisting us with that. But we do provide updates as to the status of West Nile virus and other issues on a weekly basis when the season gets into full swing. So a bit about mosquitoes quickly. A lot of people are seeing these giant, quote, giant mosquitoes around this time of year. Good news is that those are called crane flies. They're not mosquitoes and they don't bite. They don't transmit any disease, so people don't have to worry about those. So you can just shoo them back outside. Not a health risk at all. And we do also get a lot of calls about midges, which is another kind of swarming insect that you might see in swarming around above the streets or wet areas. And these are midges. They don't bite also, and they're not a risk, although their populations can become quite large. Mosquitoes, all of the ones that we have in LA County are no bigger than 1/2 inch. In fact, the majority of them are about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch in size, and we'll talk about those in just a second. Mosquitoes spend half of their life in water, so the immature stages must have standing water to complete their life cycle. The eggs are laid either on the surface of the water or along the edges of containers that are holding water, as you can see in the graphic. Larvae, which is their immature stage, feed on algae and bacteria in that water, and that's why they tend to prefer the kind of dirty, stagnant, funky, stinky water that we have in urban areas. And then they will pupate, which is their cocoon stage, and emerge as flying adults. That whole process in the water takes 5 to 7 days on average, and adult mosquitoes can live anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 weeks, depending on the time of year. And you can see what mosquito larvae look like in the video at the bottom. A lot of people see those and think those are tadpoles or some worm that they have found in the water. Those are actually mosquito larvae, and they do swim around in the water, so that's something to keep an eye out for. We have 2 primary types of mosquitoes that we're dealing with in urban areas. And in fact, because of urbanization, we have higher populations of these mosquitoes than we would in a natural setting. The first is Culex mosquitoes. Those are the common ones that come out in the evening hours and the early morning hours to bite. They are the primary vectors or transmitters of West Nile virus, which we will talk about in more depth in a minute, as well as several other encephalitis viruses that we have here in LA County. Our newest invasive is called Aedes. There are 3 different Aedes species that have now moved into Southern California, in fact, California, in recent years. And they are problematic for several reasons. One, they are aggressive daytime biters, and this is unique to California. We've not had any issues with mosquitoes that come out during the daytime and bite. And they are also vectors of diseases like Zika virus and dengue and yellow fever and things that we've never had to worry about here in Southern California. Now, with the presence of these mosquitoes here, that risk is increasing. So global commerce has brought the mosquitoes here, but the viruses will be brought in by global travelers. So that is our biggest concern. And just to point out, West Nile virus transmitted by Culex is transmitted really among birds and then incidentally to people, but these other viruses are directly from person to person. So the risk of one of those viruses spreading rapidly is much greater than it is for, say, West Nile virus. If it ever gets here, knock on wood. We're doing our best to make sure it doesn't happen. Let's talk first about West Nile virus. So I commonly hear people tell me that there's not a lot of West Nile virus. I don't hear about it very much. It's not an issue in Southern California. And I just want to put this graphic up there to show you what an average year looks like. All of those red dots in Southern California are samples of mosquitoes that were collected positive for West Nile virus in 2017. The black dots are birds that were tested positive, and it's hard to see, but there's also some blue ones on there for some sentinel chicken flocks that we maintain throughout the Southern California area to help us monitor this bird virus. When we look at the statistics of human cases and graph that against the percent of mosquito samples that are positive for West Nile virus in just our service area alone, you can see the numbers vary from year to year, but it is pretty consistent. The more mosquitoes we see, the more human cases we do see. And in LA County, the county as a whole receives about 250 human cases a year. And this is really literally the tip of the iceberg. The 1 to 5% of people that get really, really sick and are hospitalized. And so the number of cases is significantly higher than what is shown on the graphic. So if we talk about the disease risk, the good news is that most people bitten by an infected mosquito will have no symptoms whatsoever. That's excellent. Your immune system kicks in and fights it off, but about 1 in 5 will develop symptoms. The majority of the cases, these are what they call the milder form of the illness, headache, fever, rash, exhaustion, muscle fatigue, and that typically lasts anywhere from a week to a couple of weeks. But it can progress to a more severe illness if the virus moves into the central nervous system or the brain. And these are the more severe cases. And these patients often are living with lifetime debility or very long-term debility. I should back up and mention, of the severe cases, the majority of the severe cases are in people over 50 years of age or those that are dealing with some other underlying medical condition. Okay, so we'll talk briefly about these new invasive Aedes that I mentioned. As you can see, in our district alone, we have all 3 species, and they arrived beginning in 2011. The more we looked, the more we found, literally. And they do thrive in urban areas. They tend to prefer small man-made containers to lay their eggs in, and this has become the biggest challenge for dealing with these. And you can see how tiny they are. They're pretty distinctive looking, black and white striped, actually kind of pretty if you're going to be a mosquito, but they are very tiny, and they're very stealthy and hard to detect. So they tend to fly low to the ground. People don't often hear them or see them biting. The eggs of this species is really what's making this a big challenge for us. Because they lay their eggs on the sides of containers that are holding water or have recently held water, the eggs dry out and remain viable in a yard for years. We don't really know in Southern California how long these eggs can survive, but something as simple as a bucket that held water in it last year fills back up with all the rain we just recently received, all those eggs will start hatching out, and then new population will emerge. So this is really the biggest challenge with dealing with these mosquitoes. We talk a bit about the city of Paramount. It might be a little bit hard to see this graphic, I apologize for that, but I wanted to show you a bit of the workload as far as the status of the situation for vector control in your city. And actually, your city, by comparison, is doing pretty good when we look at other cities for the number of inspections that we do, the number of requests that we get for assistance, the types of sources that we find. Paramount is pretty typical or below average in a lot of these situations. So the green dots represent common areas like drains and vaults and fountains and some of these man-made sources that are more difficult to control. Unmaintained swimming pools are indicated by the blue dots, and in the city currently we have only about 19 sources that we monitor on a regular basis. The drains and vaults, we have about 208 of those, and last year alone they were inspected about 750 times. And then underground storm drains is becoming a bigger challenge for us. So water that sits in these underground drainages, you can see how many of those orange dots are manhole covers that we literally have to go and inspect and treat if necessary. We have 368 of those within the city, and they're inspected every couple of months. And then we had 41 service requests, and those are calls from residents calling, saying, I'm having a mosquito problem, can you come help us out? The majority of these last year were because of these new invasive Aedes mosquitoes. So where are we having issues? These are some of the common places that we find mosquitoes in urban areas. And in fact, as you can see, these are all man-made sources. So rain barrels are becoming a bigger challenge for us. People that have rain barrels must ensure that they are screened and properly, tightly screened so mosquitoes cannot get in and out of them to lay eggs. Rain gutters, yard drains, swimming pools, unmaintained swimming pools are a big challenge, particularly for those mosquitoes that transmit West Nile. And then the underground drainages for both species. Fountains, recycle bins, even plants, a little bit of water that collects in the leaf axils of plants, such as these bromeliads in the image there. You can see, I don't know if I have a pointer on this one. Is it the top? Yes. Oh, it doesn't show up. The bottom right-hand picture, you can see the larva in the bromeliad cup there. And saucers under potted plants are a huge challenge. So we do recommend people get rid of saucers under their potted plants, drill holes in the bottom of any barrels or bins that they don't need to hold water in their yard. Make sure that their water dishes are cleaned and fountains are properly maintained so that they do not provide habitat for mosquitoes. This is really a maintenance issue. And buckets and containers. You can see on the video graphic that little bit of water that's collected in the lid of that trash can has mosquito larvae swimming around in it. It only takes about 1/4 of an inch. And then used tires. So used tire drives are really beneficial for mosquito control. So really avoiding mosquitoes is getting rid of the sources of standing water on public property and private property, and then avoiding bites. And that's as simple as making sure windows are screened and wearing repellents. And long sleeves and long pants used to be a good recommendation, but these new Aedes mosquitoes can bite through even material like denim. So they're more difficult to control that way. Repellents are really the most effective way to prevent the bite if you have adult mosquitoes out there. But it's important for the residents to understand that not all repellents are equal. Those that are shown here, the active ingredients have been shown, tested and proven to be both effective and safe. And so we do recommend that you select one of these ingredients. And you don't need a really high concentration. It just means you have to reapply it less often if you have a higher concentration. Really, mosquito control is the key. We are not going to be able to eliminate all mosquitoes off of the planet by any stretch. So source reduction, tipping water out of containers, especially this time of year, the more work everybody does right now, getting out there and removing all the containers from their property, breaking that mosquito life cycle, will make a big difference later on in the summer when the populations tend to increase. And tossing out any container you have that might have eggs in it in your yard, not worth having around anymore. Avoiding the bites. And please contact Vector Control if you're having a mosquito problem that you cannot find. If you searched your yard and you can't find it, we're the folks to call. There is no cost for residents to call us. It's a service provided through the benefit assessment. And we urge everybody to really partner with us to share this knowledge and help us keep mosquitoes out of Paramount. Our contact information is up there. We have a news alert that anybody could subscribe to, as well as the reportmosquitoes.com site for you to report problems. And please follow us on social media. Be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Mayor, I got a
Questions?
Yeah. On just a regular pool that's clean and well maintained, you have a problem with larvae in there?
No, in fact, swimming pools with the chlorine level that stays consistent and filtration levels, there will not be a mosquito problem in there. As soon as the chemical levels tend to drop, then you get them pretty quickly after that.
What about if you have a little pond and a fountain that you run fresh water through all the time?
So if you have a lot of surface agitation and water movement, you might not have a problem, but check around the edges of the pond and look for those little wigglies in there. We do have mosquito fish. They're small guppies that we can bring out and put them in your pond at no cost, and those do a really terrific job in ponds.
Where can you buy those?
I don't know that, I don't think they're even legally allowed to be sold anywhere, but you can call Vector Control and we'll bring them for free.
Further questions?
I have one question. You listed the chemicals that you could use to stop them from biting, but they are chemicals. Are there actual brand items that you
The brand names? Well, if you look at...
Like I've heard Skin So Soft, I think, there's
So,
marketing in
yes,
one.
the Skin So Soft, the IR 3535 is the ingredient in Skin So Soft that works.
Okay.
And then oil of lemon eucalyptus is a botanical, and it's one of the ones that does work really well. Many of the botanicals do not. So if you're going to pick a botanical type, make sure you go for one with that product in
That's
it.
why I was wondering, instead of looking for these ingredients, because it's when you read those labels, they're
Yeah,
so
they're hard to read,
confusing.
and
If
it's
there were just
fine print.
simple, items
Brands.
out there you could tell us to get.
So for every ingredient, every company seems to make all of, a product with each of those ingredients in it. So, Off-Brand makes a product with DEET in it, makes another one with picaridin in it. They also make one with oil of lemon eucalyptus. So
Is there any information that, because I'm thinking of some treatment that we used this year, which was a baby lotion, and it had, and I'm wondering if it is lemon or eucalyptus in it, but somebody said it was the baby oil in it. Does baby oil have something that prevents?
I do
mosquito
not know of
bites?
any baby oil that
Okay.
prevents bites.
So I'll have to read and see if one of
Yeah.
these are in it. Yeah, I was looking for something, that the real chemical stuff just seems so harsh whenever you use it. So those
Yeah.
simple little brand things, maybe like the Skin So Soft.
Well, yeah, so the DEET products, the texture of DEET, people seem to be a little bit averse to. It's kind of oily, and picaridin is very mild as far as the odor and the texture. It doesn't feel oily like that. And I just recently heard, actually, and haven't verified it, that it was derived from like peppercorns, pepper
Oh.
grains. So yeah, most of those, the oil of lemon eucalyptus works quite well, but that one is not recommended on young children under the age of 3, I believe.
The picaridin?
No, the oil of lemon eucalyptus.
Oh.
So just because it's natural doesn't mean it's not.
Yeah, that's
that
what I'm
it's
mostly
safer.
concerned with, because
Right.
that's what was my issue. My granddaughter was just, I think she had like 30 mosquito bites last summer, and we tried everything, and some of the stuff that had DEETs in it to me just seemed just to spray it on her.
Yeah,
was so,
it
yeah,
smells
you
very
felt like,
strong.
"Whoa,
So yeah,
this is
look
just
for another product. And the other thing it's important to note is that if you're getting bites, that means the water source is really close by, because those particular mosquitoes don't travel
Yeah.
very far at all.
They actually did find it just,
You
it
did?
was 2 doors down, and it was fountains that, like you said,
Yeah.
they were running, but it wasn't moving all the water.
Right, exactly. So, right, it just talk to your residents too. I mean, talk to your neighbors. And if you're having a problem and you can't find it, we do encourage people just go knock on a couple of doors and say, hey, I'm getting eaten up. Are you guys? And see if you can
Right,
help solve the
right.
problem. But, I mean, that's what we're there for. We'd be happy to come out and help out if there are problems that cannot be detected.
Just putting a chlorine pellet in a pond would probably eliminate any problem in a pond then, right?
As long as the chlorine level is
High.
kept high, yeah, that it's similar to a swimming pool. So if the chlorine levels drop, then the mosquitoes come right back in. And it's actually because the algae and the bacteria come back.
Mm-hmm.
So they're landing there to feed on that. The chlorine kills the food source.
Did you have a problem around your pool last year?
No, I've never had a problem yet, but I noticed every once in a while in the front yard,
Mosquito.
Barbara gets them. They don't bother me, but they bother her.
They do bite some people more. I
Yeah,
find
no
water in
doubt.
my yard, and I know this, and I do this for a living. And after all the rains this last year, I walked outside, and I had like 4 sources on my patio that I thought, okay, this is
Yeah.
how easy it is.
Any further questions?
Just one for plants. With all the rain and then water kind of built up in some pots, and so you pour it out. But if they laid their eggs, if you throw soil on top to really dry up that moist soil, will that help? Or those are going to lay eggs if you water your plants again?
Well,
Or they're
if
gonna- I
you're,
mean,
if
not
you're
lay 'em,
talking
but-
about like a decorative pot that doesn't have a drain hole in it, that another pot is sitting down inside something like that, if it's just dirt,
Right.
the mosquitoes can't live in dirt, so you don't have to worry about that. They have
Moist
to
dirt,
have
they won't
water.
live in moist dirt?
No, it has to be
Okay.
a pretty wet layer. So
Okay.
if it's dirt related, I wouldn't worry about that. But if you have a decorative pot without a drain hole, then sometimes those decorative pots can
Right.
hold water in the bottom that that gives mosquitoes access to fly in.
So basically, if you have pots and you have it drained, you won't have a problem with it. But
Right.
if you have pots that have the little
The saucers.
the water can't get away,
Correct.
you're gonna have a problem.
Yeah, saucers, exactly. The saucers under the potted plants, if you have those, I've turned mine over or I threw them away. I just don't want them in my
No.
I really don't want those mosquitoes. They're very aggressive biters.
Any further questions or comments? I might make one, being that I sit on the board there. It's probably, you probably remember a year and a half ago, when we came to the meeting, that there was like a small trash can, as I recall, and there were little tiny, tiny black dots all around that, and that's what we were talking about on here. And those were actual eggs that all they needed was a water source, and they would start to hatch. They'd been there, like you say, for years. They can lie dormant,
Right.
and then all of a sudden, with the water source, they're right back active again and coming to get you.
And they're very hard to see, as you
Yeah,
noted.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When I first looked at it, I thought, well, okay, we got a trash can sitting here. I don't know what we got a trash can sitting on the table for, but, whatever. But then we looked closer, and there they were. It was pretty interesting. Any further comments or questions?
No.
Kelly, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'll see you next month.
Absolutely. Thank you. I brought some brochures. I'll leave them out at the front for anybody who wants to pick them up.
Okay,
Thank you very
fine.
much.
Thank you very much. Okay, item number 6, Joint Bellflower Paramount Active Transportation Plan update. Have a staff report, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, some time ago, you may recall we entered into an agreement with our neighbor to the east, the city of Bellflower, to develop a joint active transportation plan. The plan looks at how we can make both of our cities more active by providing designated biking opportunities for our residents and for those folks who work in our city. The plan also helps our sustainability efforts by accommodating more earth-friendly modes of transportation. So as you review this, please keep in mind, this is a plan. So there's nothing binding that says we're required to install bike lanes throughout our whole city. In other words, these are just recommendations if we choose to put in bike lanes where we could put them. So as you're about to see, there's been a lot of community input on this plan as well. And so now I'll turn it over to Mr. Jacob Leone from the consulting firm of KTUA. Jacob?
Thank you so much, Mr. Moreno. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jacob Leon, and I want to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to provide you all and the audience, and as well as here, Honorable Mayor and Council members, an update of what we've been doing this whole past year since January 2018 with your neighbors Bellflower on this active transportation plan. So what I have for you is just a brief overview presentation that describes the planning process, the community engagement that took place throughout the spring and summer, and then as well some of these preliminary draft recommendations that Mr. Moreno just mentioned that, and then I'd be happy to answer questions, take your comments, so that we can then go back with our team, with Ms. Figueroa, Adriana Macia, and then as well as our clients over at Bellflower, so we can finish up this joint active transportation plan. So for those that may not be familiar with active transportation, what this is, it's an effort so that we can provide people and community members opportunities to be able to use non-motorized transportation to reach their destinations. And so for this effort, this project was funded from California's Active Transportation Plan Cycle 2 grant cycle. And that provided the opportunity for Bellflower and Paramount to come together and work on this project jointly. And not here with me today, though, is Catherine Padilla and Associates. They were our outreach specialists that teamed up with us. And I myself am representing KTUA. I was fortunate to be the project manager for this active transportation plan. I've been working on transportation and park planning for these last 6 years at KTUA, and we're a San Diego-based firm, and we have work all over Southern California and Central California for healthy placemaking. So again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to work with your community and your staff on moving forward with this plan. And again, the purpose of this is to address bike paths and pedestrian deficiencies so that we can provide community members opportunities for both transportation and recreation uses. This fulfills the state mandate for defining what these priorities could be so that we can be able to provide opportunities for increasing safety, convenience, and accessibility for transportation and mobility so that we're all able to reach our destinations such as schools, parks, shopping centers, and other locations. And through this whole process, we're able to develop a list of projects and grant opportunities so that your staff can do what they do best is take advantage of grant opportunities, get the money so that we can all get things built and put on the ground. This is a quick overview of what we've been doing since January of 2018. We kicked off the project with both cities, and we immediately began our data collection. Through that time frame, we also developed a community engagement strategies plan that outlined all of our methods of reaching out to the community, and I'll touch upon that in shortly. So that community engagement carried us through summer of 2018 to the early fall, and then with that input and the analyses, we were able to come basically today to the point where we're standing on a draft plan, draft recommendations, so that we can move forward with a final plan. And before I get too ahead of myself, I wanted to provide a quick overview of the different kinds of improvements that we're looking at. I want to begin with the bikeway improvements, beginning with multi-use path, such as the one that you see on the top left. This is very similar. This picture is taken from the Bellflower Bike Trail. These are paths that are completely separated from the roadway. And these are the paths that people love, that they feel the safest and most comfortable on. Bicycle lanes are those that you see on the top right, and those are, you've seen them, those are just striped on the ground, and it provides a dedicated space in the travel and the roadway for cyclists to ride on. A bicycle route is, those are usually located on smaller residential streets, and those are with lower traffic volumes, and those are usually identified as comfortable and safe to ride on because you're not riding on a big old arterial street like Somerset or Alondra. And then separated bikeways, these are finally made their way over into the United States, and they're being implemented all over the country and in Southern California. And these are bike lanes that are on the roadway, but there's a physical barrier between them and the travel lane. This picture's from Palm Springs, as you can see. There's an actual physical barrier from the travel lane and the bikeway adjacent to the sidewalk. For walking improvements, these we take for granted, but I want to remind you all again that we're looking at making sure that the sidewalk network is complete and everything's connected, because sidewalks and curb ramps are the fundamental thing to making sure that people have the opportunity to safely walk to their destinations. We're looking at crosswalks, and we're looking at different kinds of transit amenities, such as these beautiful bus shelters that have been installed throughout the city. It is our responsibility as a consultant, and when we're working on these active transportation plans, to make sure that we're also reviewing previously planned and other existing projects within the region. So for example, we took into consideration the Bellflower Paramount Bicycle and Trail Master Plan that was completed in 2013. That was also a joint project between Bellflower and Paramount. We're also making sure that we're reviewing general plan and circulation elements and those goals and policies. And another major element was the upcoming West 900 Branch Transit Corridor, and that there are opportunities to be able to design and install a bike path through that corridor. So these were some of the things that we looked at as we were planning and analyzing all the data that we're able to collect that is within here in Paramount and in the region. And I don't expect you to be able to read these maps, but I just wanted to put them up so you can see all the different analyses that take place with active transportation, from top left, understanding the land use patterns throughout the city, to seeing if there are already any existing or previously proposed bikeways and pedestrian improvements, to understanding the transit corridors where the bus stops are located, because in both Paramount and Bellflower, there's a high walking percentage, and a lot of people are using transit to be able to get to their destinations and employment centers. And one of the major things that we'll look at on the bottom right are the collisions. We use data that's readily available to download and analyze where collisions have been reported, and so that we can analyze those patterns and see if there are any infrastructure-related things that can be done to potentially, in the future, prevent these tragic collisions that have occurred in the past. At K2A and all of our projects, we try to balance not only the hard data analyses that we conduct, but also making sure that we're reaching out to the community. And so for this project, we developed a couple of things to make sure that we went out and make sure people's voices were heard. So as with every project, we created a survey that was made available, both online, that was able to be distributed through social media outreach and through the city's website, as well as printed for all of our workshops. We participated in 4 special event workshops for this project, 2 in Paramount and 2 in Bellflower. As you can see, starting from March all the way down to October 21st, we try to spread out those special events so that we can reach out to people at different points of the year. At the end of the day, we're really happy to report that we're very successful in the amount of surveys that we received. Over 500 were received, with 270 being just from Paramount. So that gave us a good foundation, understanding how people feel and think about walking and biking throughout the city. I wanted to show you just a couple pictures from the community engagement events that we participated in. And honestly, these were some of the most fun workshops that we've completed, at least in my time here in Southern California. Being able to participate in the sustainability fair here in Paramount, the Street Fest in Bellflower, their annual car show, and the Dia de los Muertos celebration here in Paramount was really great because our ideas, nowadays we have to go to the people. People aren't coming out to workshops, as I'm sure you have experienced. You know, everybody's busy. We have many commitments. So for this project, there was an agreement between Paramount and Bellflower that we'll go to the people and talk to them at these special events, and they turned out to be very successful. You might have seen our booth there at one of these events, and not only do we have surveys available, but we had maps where people had the opportunity to provide comments on. We also raffled 4 bike helmets at every workshop, so we gave out 16 helmets total, and we had little multi-purpose LED lights that we handed out to people as well. So great opportunities, and again, thank you for allowing us to be able to attend these really great events in both cities. Excuse me. All of this feeds into our project development, and so again, to remind you, there are different criteria and characteristics that we take into consideration as we're developing projects. Again, safety, community characteristics, demographics, proximity to activity centers, closing the gaps, within the city, and just trying to figure out what's the best facility that fits the characteristics of the streets. Because as you all know, depending on the way the street was built and designed and the way it exists today, there are certain limitations, between curb to curb. So all of that was taken into consideration as we're developing this preliminary list of recommendations for this active transportation plan. And right here, as you see, these are all of the projects. The line work that you see, the red, green, and blue, are the projects that were developed for both Paramount and Bellflower, but obviously we're here in Paramount, so I wanted to just focus and take a little bit of time to give you an overview of the projects that were developed for Paramount. So again, trying to understand the land use patterns and the way our streets are built, the traffic volumes, and being able to provide connections to different activity centers throughout the city. At the end of the day, we've developed this preliminary list of projects, starting from, I'll start with the big ones, the exciting ones. So for example, project number 1, that's the bike path that runs along the West San Ana Branch corridor. So that one's a really important one to make sure that is really providing a really important spine for Paramount, just the way it has for Bellflower. And that would be really great because that provides a continuous connection from the LA River, basically down to the San Gabriel River for both cities. So I think both Bellflower and Paramount are excited to hopefully secure that project, get some money, and move forward with that. Other opportunities that came out of this were looking at all the different utility easements that are within Paramount. And so projects 2 and 3 are looking at the possibility of having bike paths that go through those utility easements. Settled Park is a great example of the hard coordination and effort, but the success of being able to coordinate and being able to build something along those easements. So those projects, what's great about them is they provide access all the way up to that spine I just mentioned, to the bike path and to the north in the city. Supplement to that, we have some bike lanes that are being proposed. Those are the lines you see in blue towards the central and southern part of the city. And then also a network of the bike routes, all the green lines that you see on your screen. Those are along the residential, the smaller streets that are found within Paramount that provide connections to either, for example, the LA River on the western part of the city, or some connections in the northern part from the schools down to, again, the proposed bike path along the West San Ana Branch corridor. And all of this will be included as soon as it's vetted and approved between city staff with both Paramount and Bellflower. All of that will be incorporated into a master plan, the active transportation master plan. And as you can see here, what we at K2A provide our clients are cut sheets that describe what the project is, some pictures of the characteristics, a 3D exhibit of what that could potentially look like. Again, nothing is committed. It's just an idea of what that facility would be. And we use aerial images with callouts with potential improvements that can take place along that whole corridor. Things such as if missing curb ramps are there, we call them out. If we need better crosswalk striping, if we need a new flasher, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that, those potential improvements are called out in these cut sheets. And this has been really successful because in our experience, these type of cut sheets are what facilitates your staff, you know, Adriana, Wendy, and Bill, when they're seeking those grant opportunities, they can just pull out these cut sheets, insert them into application, and you're proving to the grantee source, whether it's the state of, you know, whether it's Sacramento or regional like SCAG, that you've already done a lot of work to begin understanding what this project could be like. So this is something that we're part of our scope that we'll be committing to you as we finalize this master plan. And so we did these cut sheets for the top 5 projects in Paramount and the top 5 in Bellflower. But all the other projects are also included. And once we're all wrapped up, we're going to be providing Adriana, Wendy, a planning level cost estimates, so that you have an idea of how much these facilities might cost to get built once you're ready to move forward and you know, seek money for that. So that with that, I want to conclude my presentation. Again, we are in the middle of finalizing these draft recommendations, and I believe we'll make sure we make this available to you all so you can take a little bit more time later on to review what we've been recommended, what we've been up to, and if you have any comments, concerns, or suggestions to include in this to make it a really successful, holistic ATP, I'd be more than happy to make sure that comes across. And once we coordinate with Paramount and Bellflower staff, we'll be able to wrap this up hopefully in the next month and have it either received and filed and approved in both cities. So thank you very much for allowing me to present the project, give you an update, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Questions? Nothing?
Looks good to me. Thank you.
I'm glad.
Jacob, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Item number 7, resolution number 19.010, an application for statewide park development and community revitalization, Proposition 68 grant program funds. Staff report, please.
Oh, yes, Mr. Mayor and Council. In June of last year, California voters approved a ballot measure that allows bond money to fund park improvements statewide. Part of this measure includes a provision for competitive grants for cities to create new space or make improvements to existing park facilities. So we will be applying for a grant, for a competitive grant, for a list of potential park improvement projects. Some are large, some are small, but in order to submit this grant application, we do need your approval on a resolution. So that's where we are right now, and I'll turn it over to our Community Services and Recreation Director, David Johnson, to handle the item. David?
Thank you, John. Mayor and council members. So these are the same projects that we brought back to you in November 2018 at a study session. They're listed there on the screen. They're not in any particular priority. We do have a grant consultant working with us to develop the grant applications for all 5. So the intent is to submit an application for all 5. In our opinion, from speaking to the consultants and to other consultants that are working on these projects, we think this is going to be very much like Proposition 84. Even though the state Prop 68 grant allows for projects that are renovations of parks, the state still is looking for opportunities to build additional park space. So we think it'll be like with Prop 84, where we submitted, I think, 4 projects, and the one that we got was what turned out to be Salud Park. Because that did create additional park space. We certainly, after Prop 84, we did lobby that, you know, again, those grants need to be reflective of renovations. So we do think these projects are all very good, but again, the inclination that we're getting is that they're still looking for new park space. So we're just going to walk through the parks again, and we have estimated construction costs. These construction costs do not include you need about another 15% for finalizing the construction drawings and for construction inspection if they were to happen. So these are just construction costs. So the Village Handball Courts, this is at our Village Skate Park property. This would be in that red area, which is on the south side of the property along that wall. There would be construction of 4 handball courts and estimated construction cost of $675,000. Then we get into the bigger ticket projects. The Spanish soccer fields, construction estimate over $3 million. We would be looking at that, again, half of that park is passive recreation. We would be looking at making that entire red space into an active recreation soccer space. At Progress Park, where we have softball fields, we would be looking at converting this to a multi-use type of field where we would retain the soccer or the softball fields, but in between there would be a soccer field, and in that smaller rectangle there would be also a soccer space for younger children. But again, in this particular project, it would be with synthetic turf fields, so you have synthetic turf infields for softball, but it would be incorporated into the soccer space as well. And we're at over $4.5 million. And then nearing the $5 million mark, we have the Paramount Park Community Center expansion. What we're looking at doing here is building additional space there, about 6,000 square feet, that would provide dedicated space for our seniors that they would not have to share with the general community. There would be dedicated spaces for them for the variety of activities that they engage in. And then the $5 million mark, this would be what we're just currently right now calling Salute Park 2. This would be very similar to what we did with Salute 1. It actually would be a little stripped down. We would not have the walking track, but we would have synthetic turf fields and a decomposed granite walking area. This would be directly across from Leano Jackson School, so it would be accessible for the kids for open space during school day, and then obviously available for public use throughout other times. Excuse me. So in total, we're applying for 5 parks. We will be conducting a variety of community engagement with our community and all these park projects. The idea is that, again, this is our general concept of what we're thinking. We're going to bring it to the community. They're going to make some changes. They're going to have different ideas. So we'll see how those meetings go, and we'll make adjustments as needed before we actually submit the grants. In total, we're shooting for $18 million of grants. That's not what we'll get. Very much with Prop 84, we submitted for $15 million of grants, and all we got was Salud, and we were very happy to get that. Again, there is, I think on this first cycle, it's $250 million that's available. There will be every city in the state of California applying for these things, so it's a very competitive process. But as John mentioned, the grant does require authorization from the council to apply, and we're recommending that the council give us authorization to make these applications. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Do we have our grant writer in place now that's writing the grants?
Yes, we have a contracted grant writer.
Further questions?
Make a motion, we read by title only and adopt resolution number 19.010.
Second.
Motion by Hoffmeyer, second by Lemons, to read by title only, adopt resolution number 19.010. Have roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Hansen?
Yes. Item number 8, 2019 YMCA Summer Swim Program. Staff report, please.
Yes, sir. As you may recall, the City Council approved an agreement with the YMCA to run our swim program at the pool. The Y ran our swim lesson program last year at Paramount Pool, so they have some experience working with our community. We want to now go over with you how the swim program will work at the pool for this upcoming summer and what some of the changes residents may notice when they arrive at the pool. So once again, I'll turn it over to David Johnson, our Community Services and Recreation Director, who will handle the item. Dave?
Thanks again, John. Mayor and council members. So some of basically Paramount Pool now is a Y pool. They're now running our swim lessons and they're running recreation swim. Our recreation swim program is, again, that's that open swim program that's most of our community engages in. They come to the pool, it's just regular open swim. You just got to get a frolic in the water. So it's not like a swim lesson. The swim lessons is a paid service and there's detailed instruction from a lifeguard. The rec swim does have lifeguards on station to make sure it's a safe environment. The YMCA operates using different standards. They use what they call the YUSA guidelines. This is a national standard used by all Ys across the United States. Previously, we used Red Cross standards. The recreation swim program, it'll be very similar to what we did. Similar operational weeks. Theirs is going from June 15th, as soon as the kids get out of school. We'll go to August 8th. Now that ends a little bit sooner than what we traditionally did. There is still the option, again, if there is a demand for recreational swim, we have the option to engage a little bit longer with the kids. But it's something that we actually saw ourselves as you get closer to the school returning. We did see drop off in our own recreation swim program. They're operating very similar operational hours, Monday through Thursday, 1 to 3 p.m., and then Friday through Sunday, 1 to 4. They will engage in night swim very much like we did on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and in their case, 7 to 8:30. So here's where you see kind of the more significant changes that we'll see in the program. And again, a lot of this is, our program has been the way it has been for 30 plus years. And it probably did not adapt to some changes in liability standards, and the Y program is reflective of those more modern liability requirements. So one of the first things is the age of entry without an adult. In our program, again, which goes back some 30 years, we allowed children 6 years old and up to enter the pool without an adult. The YMCA program is a much more controlled program, higher standard of liability and care. They require anyone who's 12 years or under 12 years old to actually enter the pool with an adult. Now, it doesn't have to be your parent. It can be a guardian. It can be someone over 18 who's responsible for these children. They do require that all children take a swim test if you're under age 12. So what you'll see later in the slide is that when you take your swim test under age 12, they give you a band that tells them and identifies readily for the lifeguard that you're not a qualified swimmer, you're an average swimmer, or you're a good swimmer. And so that kind of dictates where they can travel into the pool. They do have a more expansive parent-to-child ratio than what we did. We did 1 to 2. They do 1 to 6, but they do require that no more than 3 of those children can be non-swimmers under the care of that adult. The entry identification, we used to use those little silicone bands on the wrist to identify a resident so they would get the resident rate. The Y is actually going to what I think is a much better system. They have these little cards that people will be able to purchase. If they do it now, they can get it for free through the month of April. But after that, it'll be $2 per card per person. But they'll be taking your photo. So actually, as someone scans that card and they go into our pool, there's a photo identification, so it's difficult to cheat the system. But this will be how our residents identify themselves as residents and get the resident rate. They are recommending a change to the fees, not for residents, but for non-residents. They're recommending that it go to $5 for both child and adult. So this is the zones that doesn't read very well, does it? I'm sorry. This is our pool, so to orientate you, to your left of that area, that's Paramount Park. To the south, to the bottom, that's Paramount High School West, or Paramount Park School. To your top right is the gymnasium. So you see that little area to the left where the color gets a little bit lighter. That says red, yellow, and green. So if you have a red band or a yellow band or a green band, everyone's allowed in that area. So it's kind of where that little blue line diagonally is going across. That kind of separates our zero depth area where we have our play toys, splash toys. And again, so once you start crossing that imaginary line, you start getting into a little bit deeper water. Once you get into that transition zone, you're going to get into possibly 3 feet of water. So between those two diagonal blue lines, you now have if you have a red band, they're not going to let you travel past that splash zone. You are not a qualified swimmer. You're going to have to be in that zone. You better have a parent. If they see you with the yellow band, you're going to be fine. If you see you with the green band, you're fine as well. Once you get into the deep zone on that bottom part where you see that very deep area with the diving board, that is where you're going to have a green band. You're going to have to be a qualified swimmer to engage in that space. So this is, again, how the YMCA does it. It's kind of different than how we did it. We kind of let everyone go into the pool as we did, and we conducted a lot of rescues because a lot of folks got into spaces in which they weren't qualified to be in. So I think this will be a very effective use of our pool, and the Y will do a fantastic job. They are still offering swim lessons, actually, so this is one of the advantages of working with the Y, of many advantages. They're actually offering a spring session for swim lessons, something we did not do. They are doing the summer session like we traditionally did, and then they're offering also a fall session for our residents. They're also providing additional programming. There's an opportunity here for our students or our kids to engage in a program called Splash Ball. So this is the introductory program that teaches you how to play water polo. So it is a paid program. It does run late August or middle of August to the middle of September. But they let you float on inner tubes to get engaged, and they teach you all the elements of playing water polo. Our water polo teacher at the high school is very excited by this. She's looking for new kids to join the program, and this can teach them. It is pricey. It's $180 for that session. But just be aware that all the YMCA programs offered in the city, they do offer financial assistance. So if that is a bit steep for you for your family budget, engage the Y, and they'll find a way to make it affordable for you. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Did they put a capacity on how many people can be in the pool? Did the YMCA, say 100 people are allowed in the pool and then close it off after that? Is there a capacity?
The pool itself has a capacity, and I'm going to go off the top of my memory, it's around 400. What the Y has to do, though, is for every 25 people that are in the water, they have to have a lifeguard on station. So they go off a number of participants in the water ratio.
So how many lifeguards per se, like on a summer day when kids are going? So how many realistically could be swimming? Do they have a number of lifeguards that they have assigned at a certain period of time so you know how many kids will be allowed in the pool?
Yes, I mean, they obviously, they have our history of usage, so we've shared that with them, so they'll have an idea of how many approximately they'll get. But I do actually have someone from the YMCA here. She actually runs the aquatics program, and I'm not sure if Alex, you want to come up and give us a little more detail on that?
And then one more question, Dave. Is the pool back open now? Is it up and running?
I will turn over to Adriana.
Thank you. No, we're still working on the pool. We expect that would be turned back on in either next week or the week after.
Okay, because I did receive a few phone calls
Yeah.
in regards to the pool.
Yeah, that was just one of those things that we can't predict.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Alex?
Okay.
So as far as lifeguards go, we do have the numbers reflective of the city. So right now we have anywhere from 9 to 12 lifeguards scheduled to be on. That's just guards that are going to be on rotation. We also have a rotating guard to work first aid. We have 2 scheduled for the locker rooms, and then we have people scheduled at the front desk. All the staff at the pool are trained lifeguards, so we can pull any of them at any time to go out and guard the pool if we go over our ratios.
Okay, sounds good. So on a given day during the summer, how many lifeguards are there for the pool itself?
In the facility or just to guard the pool?
Just to guard the pool.
Right now, the most we have on is 12 scheduled for the day, and that'll all be reflective of the numbers per day and per week that the city gave
But
us.
is that 12 at a time or
Yes.
12 rotating throughout the day?
12 at a time that are rotating for the rec swim. So 12 guards on guarding the pool.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, few further questions?
Take a motion to receive and file the report.
Second.
Motion by Hoffmeyer, second by Lemons to receive and file this report. We have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Hansen?
Yes. Item number 9, appointment of city commissioners. Don't have a staff report, that's just me, is that correct? Okay, we can do that. The Planning Commission, there are 2 commissioners that their term does not expire until 2021, but we'll name them anyway. That's Jaime Abrego and Jaime Lopez. The other ones will expire, well, they are expiring right now, so they need to be reappointed. That's Ernie Esparza, Roy Gillum, and Jim Hyde. Public Works, Eileen Aparicio, Russ Hansen, Rosemary Mendez, Linda Timmons, and Rosemary Vasquez. Parks and Recreation Commission, Alexander Garcia, Maria Angel, Frank Barraza, Carlos Garcia, and Margaret Mondragon. No, I'm tongue-tied.
She says Mondragon.
Mondragon? Is that what she said?
said, yeah.
Mondragon? Okay. But Public Safety Commission, Todd Bausma, Velma Stallings, Viviano Favela, Moses Huerta, and Brenda Olmos. And the Senior Services Commission, Virginia Chavez, Maria Espinoza, Claudia Quinones, Cleona Hatwine, and Jim Stevens. And that is the commissioners, and we need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And moved by Lemon, second by Hoffmeyer to approve all these commissioners. We have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Hansen?
Yes. Item number 10, mayor's appointments. Guess there's no staff report on that one either, is there? Okay. We have these. California Contract Cities Association, representative was Martinez, alternate Hansen. California Joint Powers Insurance Authority, Representative Hoffmeyer, alternate Martinez, and alternate Chun. Clean Power Alliance, Representative Gillen, alternate Figueroa. County Sanitation Districts, 1 and 2, Representative Hansen, alternate Martinez. Eco Rapid Transit, Representative alternate Hansen. Gateway Cities COG Board of Directors, Representative Martinez, alternate Hanson. Gateway Cities COG, SR 91, I-605, I-405 Corridor Cities Committee, Representative Gillen, alternate Martinez. Greater Los Angeles Vector Control Board, representative is Hanson. League of California Cities, Representative Martinez, alternate Hoffmeyer. LA County City Selection Committee, Representative Hanson. Paramount Unified School District Liaisons, Representative Lemons and Representative Martinez. Sister City Committee, Representative Martinez. Southeast Animal Control Authority, Representative Lemons, alternate Hanson. Southeast Water Coalition, Representative Hanson, alternate Gillen. Southern California Association of Governments General Assembly, Representative Gillen, alternate. And this, do we need to explain that it's going to be the City Council as a whole? That sometimes everyone, if maybe I'm getting it wrong, or would you like to explain? I'll try to.
If you want to take a shot, Mr. Mayor.
I'll take a shot at it, yes. Sometimes we don't all attend this. Most of the time we don't. But if the Representative Gillen could not go, then any member of the City Council could fill in as the alternate. Is that correct?
That is correct, with the addition that they would be the voting delegate representing the city. Correct.
Okay. That's all I have at this point then. That's the whole list, I do believe.
Make a motion to confirm the mayor's appointments.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that these appointments be confirmed, or moved by Martinez, second by Hoffmeyer. Sorry about that. We have roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Hanson.
Yes. Okay, comments or committee reports from council members.
I was, I'll go first, I guess.
Okay.
I was down last weekend at a JPIA conference, and very interesting, but still, one of the biggest problems we have at JPIA on as far as claims goes are trip and fall, slip and fall, and stuff like that. So they were talking about if our city is up to par on how we inspect our sidewalks and different things we can do after we inspect them if we don't fix them. If we could paint them or, you know, put a red stripe or orange stripe across the sidewalk where they've been, it saves you the, probably being, probably brought a lawsuit against you is what it amounts to. It's a way to help you get out of it. And that's about it. That's all I got to say about that.
No committee report.
Councilmember Gillen?
Yes, actually. So since the last council meeting, I went as Mayor Hanson's alternate to the WRD Water Replenishment District meeting. Very informative. First commission meeting I have been able to go to, that I was selected to go to or asked to go to. So I enjoyed it. And then also I participated in the Eco Fair, which I thought was a great success for the city. All the feedback I got was, wow, you guys really did a good Eco Fair. I've been to other ones and they're not as good or organized as the one that Paramount did. So good job on that. Everybody was very happy with the trees that were given away and all the succulents. Some of the feedback and just some food for thought. A lot of the gardeners that showed up and were interested in gardening have very limited space, and they were curious to see if we'd be able to change like a city ordinance that would allow a box in their yard, just a small box. Nobody wants a big garden in their front yard, but like a 4 by, I think they're about 5 by 3 size box, so that people could garden and grow, and some of their own vegetables. So that was something that was discussed. And then I also had the opportunity to attend a school board meeting, and it was good to see that, one of the issues near and dear to my heart is our environment. And so it was good to go to a school board meeting and see that they are working with a nonprofit that will write grants. And it was a unanimous decision to finally have grants written to see about putting air filters in classrooms. So that was a very positive note as well. And then I just want to take a minute and thank Tom Hansen for appointing me to a few commissions. As you know, I will be starting my 3rd year in city council, and for the last 2 years, I was not put on any commission, so I want to thank Mayor Hansen for allowing me to do that. And one of the other issues that I ran on was transparency, so I want you to know that these commissions, a lot of them are paid commissions, and some of them are paid up to $225 for every meeting that you attend. And the other reason why I'm thanking him is because in the past, 2 previous mayors chose not to put me on a commission, which I found kind of strange about, because in the election, I came out number 1, and yet the person that was no longer able to sit as a council member because they were voted out was kept on these commissions. And so because I want to be transparent, I also want you to know that community members, if the mayor decides so in the future, can also appoint a community member to these commissions. So if there's something that you're interested in, feel free to talk to the mayor. Feel free to say, hey, this is something that I'm interested in, because it should also go not only to council members, but to the community. And I just want to say thank you for all your positive feedback that I received over the last couple weeks, and I'll just leave it at that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor Hansen, may I make a comment?
Hold on.
Okay.
Yes.
Just in the issue of transparency that Councilmember Guillen brought up, I think it's important to note, because some people don't know the history, that it's not unusual not to be appointed to committees. I too, when I ran the first time, was the highest vote getter, but I didn't get appointed to a committee for 6 years after I became on the council, before there was a stipend committee appointed to me. And that was by my colleagues, and I didn't in any way feel that I was being treated unfairly. I just felt that it was a matter of, when the mayor wanted to appoint me to something, he would appoint me to something, and that took about 6 years. So I don't think there was anything personal there. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I'll follow up on that. I don't think I cut you off.
Hold on.
Please do.
Yeah.
The only committee report that I might have is that I also attended the Eco-Friendly Fair, and Assemblyman Rendon was there. I got to speak with him. He was very happy with the whole process. The trees were given away awfully quickly, and I think all the residents that got one were happy with that, and I think we're going to try to, we took names or something, didn't you tell me, Dave?
We have vouchers.
Adriana did?
We did, sir.
Took some names, so some people are even going to get some more. Is that correct?
We ran out of 75 at the event, and we issued 23 vouchers. And as soon as they come in, we will either have them delivered or have them come in and pick them up.
Okay, very good. As far as the mosquitoes, like I say, I attend that meeting pretty much every month, and it has gotten to be a problem with that, and I hope everyone enjoyed the report that was given by Kelly. She does a really very good job. We're going to attempt, they have one of the first slides that was there, they have the SWAT bus, they call it, which is almost like a lab. It's pretty new, actually. It's only a year or so old now at this point. And they go to schools and they have displays and so on and so forth. And I mean, they have some videos that they do and so on, and so it's microscopes inside. It's quite a bus that they have put together. And like I say, it's play on words, as mosquito SWAT bus. So that's all I have. We're under control.
Now, may I?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So you stated that you hadn't, you weren't appointed for 6 years, and that's fine. I didn't say that it was unfair. I said I was thanking Mayor Hansen for putting me on these, because the past 2 years I hadn't. I never said it wasn't unfair, but the fact of the matter is you may have taken 6 years to get there, but you've been on commissions for 14 years now. And so, I just wanted to point that out. And so my point was to thank Mayor Hansen, not to say that it wasn't fair. And I don't know at what point somebody feels like they become the moral compass to make decisions based on feelings, but I really think that at some point our city council could look into having some bylaws so that a person who feels that they are the moral compass and should be making decisions based on emotion as opposed to what the city and the residents have voted for, then I think that would benefit future generations to come. Thank you.
Okay, then this meeting is adjourned to our regular meeting.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, comments from staff?
Oh,
That's
I forgot
okay.
you guys totally. I'm
That's
sorry.
no problem.
New job here.
That's okay. That's okay. Just a couple of things. As Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer mentioned, with the JPIA trip and claim falls, actually our trip and claim falls, I'm happy to report, are down. In fact, you will see we're going through the initial stages of our fiscal year 2020 budget, and our liability insurance rates have actually gone down. So, yeah, so we're doing well there. And that was at one point one of our top claims was trips and falls on sidewalks, and we entered an exploratory agreement with JPIA to do horizontal cutting of sidewalk impairment, so that has been approved. The other thing, Mr. Mayor and Council, I'd like to introduce a staff member that's been with us, but he is now in a promotional position, and that's Mr. Jonathan Monsonot. Jonathan, you want to wave at the back there? Jonathan started in July of 2015 as a management analyst in recreation. He moved to City Hall back in October of 2017 as an as management analyst in administrative services. He took over as an interim human resources manager in October of 2018, and actually has become now our permanent HR manager in March of 2019. Jonathan has a bachelor's degree in industrial and labor relations from Cornell University, so he's Ivy League. He lives in Temple City and enjoys playing sports, spending time with friends and family, and traveling as well. So if you have any issues with HR-related issues, healthcare, stuff like that, go to Jonathan. He's your new point of contact.
Welcome, Jonathan. Thank you.
Congratulations, John.
Anything further?
That's it.
Then I can adjourn to, well, actually, I put it away now. May 7th at Progress Park at 7 o'clock.
Yes,
correct?
sir, and that's just another notice. We will be at Progress Park for
Or 6 o'clock,
our
excuse me.
educational month.
6 o'clock.
Right.
Then we are adjourned.